Yeah, I think we're good to go. So are we recording? Okay. All right, welcome everyone to the Wednesday, April 2nd caucus and work session of the Albany Common Council. Mr. Jimenez, please call the roll.
Adams. Present. Anane. Ballerin.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Conti. Here. Farrell.
Here.
Flynn. Frederick.
Here.
Hoey.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Keegan.
Here.
Kimbrough.
Here.
Love. Here. Robinson. And Zamer. That's 11 present. We're also joined by Council President Corey Ellis, City Clerk Shaniqua Jackson, Deputy Corporation Counsel Bart Williams, Research Counsel Jake Iceland, Legislative Director Brian Jimenez, and Junior Policy Analyst Alyssa Kamara.
Thank you. It's okay. Starting off for approval of minutes for the previous meeting, March 17th. Meeting minutes I'll be offering for approval. And moving into local laws, there'll be two for amendment, to be recognized for amendment, local law J and local law L. I believe the updated version of local law L is on your desk, and J is coming. Yep. Okay. All right. And for local law L, if any members had questions about the local law residency or anything like that, we have Anne-Marie Salmon, Ms. Salmon, our Commissioner of Administrative Services, here to answer any questions. Does anyone have any questions for her? No. No. Will you just come up real quick? Sorry.
I'm okay with supporting, because for years we've been hearing understaffed, and if the residents aren't applying for the jobs, then I would be open to lifting the requirement. But I also would hope that we would have some type of mechanism to make sure that it doesn't get so unbalanced to the point where we're just hiring people from outside the city of Albany. So that's something that, I've been receiving calls in support of the ideal. But one of the things that I would like to see is, some type of oversight to make sure that it doesn't just turn lopsided.
I appreciate your support, and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, we put a preference in here because, I live in Albany. My kid goes to the local public school. Our preference is to have residents serve this city, but for some of those critical roles, we're at the point where how are we going to do this infrastructure agenda without engineers? How are we going to pick up the phone calls for 911 without those telecommunication dispatchers? We will be preferencing residents on every job title, but when we can't find any qualified applicants for the city residency, we will then look further afield. But I agree with you. It's something we'll be monitoring.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Hoey.
Yes, and I'm also in support of the changes. What I'd like to see, and I've received a bunch of phone calls too, and one thing that I've heard and what I've repeated out, I would like the city to incentivize living in the city. Maybe we can do something. I had brought this up with the mayor some years ago, and she said, well, because of collective bargaining, we can't. I was a union official. You can do stuff, maybe like as contracts come up, that we can. I don't see any union saying, no, we don't want our members getting extra benefits. But if there's some way we could help with, mortgages or finding housing, we got to be creative to make Albany an attractive place to work and to live. So that's what I'd like to see, that we look at something like that where if, I chose, I'm from Colony and I'm working in the city, but the city's going to help me maybe with something. I might want to move into the city if the housing's available, if the benefit, you know, is worth it. So I would rather people volunteer to live here than to, you know, force them to. Thank you.
Yeah, that's something I agree with, and we can look at in some of the budget proposals. I know that we already have the housing down payment incentive, but we have looked at over time maybe raising that and seeing the utilization among city staff, so we'll keep our eye on it.
Yeah, I didn't realize we had that. Thank you.
Ms. Farrell?
Just to talk a bit about what we discussed in the committee meeting, there is a 3-year sunset on this legislation, so this specific concept that we're moving forward with, everybody hired underneath it will be able to continue their job, but Anne Marie said that she would be working with us to find a way to make sure, because there is a preference for civil service exams if you live in the city, but that's about 75% of our workforce. There's another 25% that it would be nice to make sure that we have a mechanism in place that we really are looking at making sure that we are giving preference to people that live in the city while still giving flexibility. If an example, we have a PE that just started working versus somebody that lives in Colony that's got 20 years of engineering experience, it might make more sense to hire the person with 20 years experience and to allow flexibility with that. It might be a situation where that's fine. We still would, this situation, the person with the 20 years of experience, maybe it's completely different area and we do want to hire that City of Albany resident, but to make sure there's a preference in there. And Anne Marie also is clearly very dedicated to living in the city. She completely understood the concerns that we discussed, which is appreciated. But another thing that I've been very clear with, Tom, I completely agree. I think that we absolutely, in this budget cycle, need to have an incentive for living in the city. If we're going to be removing this clear requirement, making sure there is a place there. And I would say our first term, I did the living wage legislation, and we were able to raise the wages for our lowest level without going through a whole union contract, that you can actually give a benefit to employees. It's not something that's usually people like to do, and it isn't actually always popular within the union leadership because sometimes that's something they would rather trade for something else. We don't always know the ins and outs of things, but it is absolutely something you can provide a benefit, and we have in the past. So that is something that definitely would like to talk about. In about 2006, 2007, different people I was talking to, it used to be that a portion of the taxes, property taxes, were forgiven for people that live in the city. I don't know, I think that that's something that I think looking at that would make sense, and also for people that don't have a property, something for them as well, whether it's a bonus or something along those lines. But I really think that we need to start incentivizing, because, and if we had a section, like a percentage off of property taxes up to a certain amount, that's something that people might start, as they're looking to buy houses, they might say, you know what, I'm gonna really look in the city, and because I wanna make sure, like, now I have an option, I can live where I work, and it makes the taxes a lot more reasonable for people that work here. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, but we definitely discussed that and discussed finding a permanent solution because there are ebbs and flows in employment, and we want to make sure that moving forward, whether or not we're in a situation where we're silly with a lot of tons of people or applying for jobs, then we'll make sure we're hiring people in the city. But if we're ever in this situation again, or if this continues for a long period of time, there will be a mechanism where we can find the best people for the job. And so that's very much appreciate all of your work on this, Emery.
Mr. Ballerin?
Thank you. I just want to echo the thanks for all your work and your commitment, Emery. You know, I want to say I appreciate it. I've heard so much of what you do behind the scenes that people don't know, and you know, I really hope I want you to know that we appreciate it, and thank you for your commitment to that work and to our city. I also, I'm not sure if you're in the meetings. Are you involved with the negotiations?
I sit in from time to time, but it's the budget office and the legal department are typically the leads.
Okay, so this may not be directed to you, maybe it's more directed to Corporation Counsel and our budget director. So if you're watching, I think we need to clear up some of these union contracts that are sitting out there, specifically the telecommunications 911 operators. We got to get that settled. We're doing this. This is something I think the unions are in support of. I think this is something that they would like to see us move forward. I think we need to get everyone back in the room and get those contracts settled. You know, that specific department is down based on the meeting we had last week. Was it last week? I don't even know anymore. Based on the meeting we had in the law department in the last week or two, they're down 50%. That's not a good number. So you know, I'm glad we're looking to move this forward, and it's got support from the colleagues. But I also want to make sure that our shared government entities on the other side understand. Let's get these contracts settled, because 50% doesn't make anyone look good and doesn't make anyone safe. So, you know, thank you again for all your work, and if you don't mind sharing that with your colleagues,
I'll let them know. Thank you.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on to ordinances introduced. We have by Mr. Ballerin, ordinance 24125. It's in relation to the changing the composition of PEG Access Oversight Board. That's going to be a referral to the PEG Ad Hoc Committee. And just briefly, it's St. Rose doesn't exist anymore, so they had a member on the board, and it's going to be eliminating that spot. Next, by Mr. Conti's ordinance 34125. It's amending the cap rate section. You want to say a few things, Mr. Conti?
Sure. This, in connection with the cabaret discussions that the Planning Committee has had, this is an alternative approach to streamlining the process. I won't get into detail. I'm sure we'll discuss that in committee, but really just some very high level. It does move from a 1-year license to a 3-year license, so there's not that need to go every year, so it streamlines that way. It provides for a rolling expiration date. Right now, it's a annual January 1 to December 31st, so if you get something in November, you have to go back in January. This is a straight 36 months, so it's rolling. All of that will relieve a lot of work on the city clerk's office. It would extend existing licenses by 2 years to bring them into compliance with the 3 years. It does eliminate the public hearing process, but does maintain the notification provisions to neighborhood associations, bids, and property owners within a certain radius of the establishment. It outlines the elements of department review so that it specifies what they are supposed to be looking at: police, buildings, planning. Corporation Counsel is taken out of that process, so it's clearer in terms of what they're actually looking at. And if a department recommends a denial, they need to specify the basis of denial so that the applicant knows what the denial was and has a better ability to appeal that denial. It sets timeframes for review with provisions if a review exceeds a certain timeframe for a temporary license that can be issued to continue during that process. And as I said, it maintains the notification requirements that currently exist. But that's a very high level, and so I think it provides relief and streamlines the current system, but also provides some of the protections in terms of having a licensure provision in place. But I guess we can have those
Okay.
discussions
Yeah.
as we
Well,
move
be
forward.
referral to planning committee.
Yep.
Okay. All right, then, under ordinances held, we'll be amending, Ms. Farrell's 248124. Be recognizing that for purposes of amendment. Then, moving into the resolutions introduced,
Sorry, Councilmember Kimbrough, do we want to address that MC I had requested, or are we?
oh, yeah, go ahead. Corporation Council is requesting an MC.
Yes, as much as I typically discourage MCs, this one's on me. It would be for an ordinance granting an easement. At the Normanskill Farm, there's a gas company that has a pipeline that has been on the property for a number of years. They also have an existing easement on the property. The pipeline runs through the Normanskill Farm over into the town of Bethlehem. They need to replace that pipeline because as we may recall from some of the issues a few years ago, the hills surrounding the Normanskill are pretty unstable, so they are going to drill the pipeline a little deeper than it currently is. They just need to slightly expand the footprint of the easement they have now. So same easement rights and everything, just slightly larger in two small discrete areas. They want to get that process rolling as the weather becomes more conducive to doing that work. So this ordinance ought to have gone out on the support legislation that went out last Friday. It didn't. So not asking for passage at this upcoming meeting, just looking to get it introduced and have it referred to finance or wherever it's going to go.
Mr. Conti.
Now, just to be consistent with my previous concerns about MCs, that's all. So,
Noted.
yeah, whatever.
I already read him the riot act
Yeah,
All right.
about it.
as you should.
So if there's a need that it needs to be introduced, it's not going to be, well, you can't pass an ordinance the same day anyway, at the same meeting.
Not
but
without a message
you-
necessity,
The
right, yeah.
reason it needs to be introduced at that meeting, it's going to go to committee versus holding it for intro to the next meeting.
Correct.
So there's a need as to why it has to happen at this meeting coming up as opposed to being put on for intro at the next agenda.
Yeah, just because otherwise, that the longer it sits unintroduced, that means it doesn't get referred to committee, doesn't go to committee as quickly, and slows the entire process of granting the easement down, so it slows the process of getting the work done.
Oh, okay. And just, in terms of like when you have an MC, and I think we've done this in the past, the sponsor memo usually includes a provision as to why it's necessary to be added by an MC and cannot wait until the next meeting, kind of like an emergency message justifying the MC in the memo, so we know that there's a reason to bypass the regular process.
That's a fair
Right,
point. I
so-
ought to have included that, and I'm happy to
Okay.
add
Can you
one, and
include that in the memo? Yeah.
will do.
And again, the idea is that they can't start the work without the easement,
Correct.
so. Yeah. Okay. So we'll be introing that, and it'll be referral to finance. And, well,
Thank
you got to get us the,
Yeah. But
The
assuming I do my part, be
yeah,
introduced and referred to finance.
thank you. So, okay, on to resolutions introduced. Mr. Balleran's resolution of the council endorsing the expansion of access to rent stabilization through rent emergency stabilization. You want to say anything about that, Mr.?
Sure, thank
Valor?
you. So there's a bill at the state. It'll probably take a little bit of time before it gets moved forward, but it addresses some of the issues that we dealt with last term with the vacancy study. The bill would remove the necessity for a vacancy study for a city to declare if there is a housing emergency. The vacancy study, as we know, can be difficult to get information, even with all the hard work from entities and and staff and private organizations that may go out there and try to get that information. It's still hard to get that information and get that accurate information. Again, it's important to note that for the property owner, the only penalty to not give accurate information is a $500 fine, which is nothing for these property owners. So it's really set up in a way that it's difficult to make sure you're getting the accurate information, one, and two, it becomes a distraction. Where, instead of discussing, is this something that could benefit a community, you start discussing the validity of the vacancy study, one, and two, were, concerns about the legal back push, if, about the vacancy study. And the lawsuits have come to all these municipalities regarding how they did their vacancy study, was their vacancy study done properly, so forth and so forth. So really, this would take that process out, make it easier for municipalities to select and choose how they'd want to implement it. It give more flexibility about the unit sizes and years of buildings that they're looking at. So it gives municipalities more authority on how they would look to implement it. So again, this was just introduced this year for the first time. So I'm sure it's got an uphill fight, but sort of good cause eviction. And we were ahead of that fight from the beginning. So this would just say we would like for the state to take this bill with the weight it deserves in the moment that we're in now.
Okay, thank you. Any,
Yeah,
Mr. Conti?
Yeah, because when you vote on resolution, like, you're also voting on the bill, underlying bill as well. But I have questions. I mean, it seems to maintain the vacancy study requirement as an option with more stringent requirements. But then the other broader one that you were discussing, it seems basically the municipality can determine the standard by which they want to find a housing emergency and then opt in. So it's pretty broad in terms of the standards. We can decide if the council, if it was passed, we can decide what to do looking at various factors that we want to look at and then say that's the justification. Is that right? That's the way I read that whole section.
It gives a lot more flexibilities to municipalities, yes.
Then I just want to ask, because it also seems to change or give the authority to change the classes of rental units that might be covered. So right now, it's those buildings of 6 units or more that were constructed in 1974 or earlier. And then this seems to say anything constructed or substantially rehabilitated within the past 15 years. So it brings it up almost to, if I'm right, anything up to 2010, if my math is right.
It would give municipalities a lot more flexibility when it comes to selecting who would be affected by it. Again, it would give us more to talk about versus just talking about the vacancy study. It would give us a lot more conversation to have to decide what year do we want to kick it in, how many units, numbers, do we want it to be 6, do we want it to be 2, do we want it to be 10? It gives
Right, so
us...
it could go, yeah, I know, so it can go do anything. So if it was like in a two-family with 2 rental units, that could come in. If it was I forget how owner-occupied we're handled, and, well, they wouldn't have been covered. Well, it's unlikely you would have had a situation like that, but would, for example, in a two-family with one unit owner-occupied and another rental, would that potentially, could that be covered under this?
I would say owner-occupied has been exempt. It's been clearly exempt from a lot of these housing laws, including fair housing discrimination. Owner-occupied properties have that.
So does under the existing law, I mean, would that be
So I would
exempt?
say it would be you exempt owner-occupied, like most of these other laws have. You know, people have the freedom of association. So, you know, when you're looking at owner-occupied properties, you have to look at, you know, the difference between a rental unit and a owner-occupied. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to owner-occupied. I don't think this body would probably go that low.
I don't know, I'm just,
I don't foresee that. I think that would be part of the discussion. If we even got that far, and depending on how this bill would change at the state level. I mean, this is just the beginning part of it. I think I'll let Megan, I think she's got a few comments.
I mean, I read the bill. The bill is not super detailed right now. It's in committee, so I would anticipate that we'll see some perhaps additional detail that may answer some of your questions. I think the other piece is that with the flexibility, so one of the things that we're still waiting on, because we did the vacancy study, but after the vacancy study, we also tried to solicit same or similar information from all of our rental units across the city so that we really could have a broader understanding of what's happening in the market. And so with the flexibility that the state is trying to provide under the proposed amendments to the ETPA, I think that we would be able to utilize that data to better make an argument for broader rent control here in the city of Albany. You know, because right now we don't have much of a purpose for that other than to try and figure out how and where we need to build housing versus what we need to do in terms of being able to stabilize rent, which, I mean, housing costs are dramatically increasing for everyone who didn't own a home prior to the pandemic. You know, those of us who are locked into our less than 5% mortgages are doing okay, I think, but everyone else is kind of screwed right now. So you know, I think it's important to demonstrate that we have strong support for amending the ETPA because that expansion to the rest of New York State has not really benefited New York State communities. It's resulted in a tremendous amount of litigation for every single municipality that's even made the 5% threshold. And I think there's only, one city right now that's actually been able to do it. So
Okay.
that's my
and
perspective.
the current provision, if you approve like the rent stabilization board, that whole process is still, that's not affected by this. That's still the process that you have.
Yeah, these are all discussions we can have down the line when we get to that point. But
Yes.
Right
I mean,
now,
this is just us saying we'd like the state to take this seriously.
Sometimes when you endorse specific legislation, you need to know what you're endorsing.
And I'll be 100% honest with you. You know, there's some things in his that I would, if it passed exactly as it is, you know, the flexibility is good, but I would also, you know, have some, I would hope that we are being reasonable in that flexibility. So, you know, because I do think a lot that we have to look at the fact that a lot of our property owners, even property owners that have owned property for a long time, have taken major hits these last few years. You know, insurance prices have gone up significantly. You know, people's taxes have gone up significantly since the reassessment. So we want to make sure we balance that out. But we also want to make sure we balance that out with making sure we're giving our tenants protection from seeing unfair increases, additional protection outside of what we've already put in with good cause. You know, I think good cause is a great first step, but when we're looking long-term, this helps address some of the other issues regarding continuously increases without justifications.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Ballerin. Okay, we'll be voting on supporting this or not. Again, it's a resolution supporting the expansion or endorsing it. And again, I would imagine that if a member didn't like it or didn't want to support it, they could just vote no on it. So, and of course, the discussions that we're having are important, but once we get to that point, we can fire those discussions back up. So we'll be voting on that. Next resolution by Ms. Loves, Resolution 224125. It's a resolution the council declaring April 25th to be Minority Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Albany. I'd like to be a co-sponsor. Did you want to say anything about that, Ms. Love? Or? Oh. Okay, all right, so we'll be moving forward with that and voting on that. Mr. Hoey?
I'd like to be a co-sponsor. Maybe the rest of the council would too.
Yeah. I try that sometimes and it doesn't work out, so I figured I wouldn't try it this time. So you just let the clerk know you want to be. Okay. All right, and then, okay, next resolution by Mr. Clark, Resolution 234125R. Resolution, the council supporting the passage of the New York State Legislature's Healthy Homes Right to Know Act, which requires the display of certain labels and warnings on gas stoves. I think it's self-explanatory, but Mr. Clark, did you want to say anything? Okay, all right. So moving right along. Again, that. Right. So next, by Mr. Ballerin, Resolution 244125R is a resolution the council recognizing and celebrating April 2025 as Arab American Heritage Month in the city of Albany. Speak about it on Monday, we'll speak about it now.
On Monday.
Next, by Ms. Keegan, Resolution 254125R. It's a resolution of Common Council commemorating April 2025 as Autism Awareness Month. We're typically all co-sponsors on that, so in keeping with that, we'll do it. The next resolution by me is Resolution 264125R. It's a resolution of the Common Council remembering and honoring William Henry Johnson's legacy, and this is, and we're usually all co-sponsors on that also. And if, with everything going on in Washington, this is even, ever more important.
Yeah, will you speak up on that? How his name just totally got wiped off the website, and I mean, it's frustrating.
It's a bunch of crap.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
So yeah, we can
I'll
all
be
talk
fully
about that on Monday. All co-sponsors. Next, resolution by me is 274125R, resolution of council acknowledging the week of April 6th through 12th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. I think we're safe to, but we're all co-sponsors on that too. Yeah. And I don't think I'm forgetting anything. That's it for the agenda.
There is also going to be Commissioner of Deeds. Those will go out as well. They weren't printed.
Did I miss? Okay, so we'll have some Commissioner Deeds to take care of also. And then that's it for the agenda. Then from the leadership meeting with the mayor and her folks, the one notice we got was that the Lincoln Park pool is supposed to be opening in July. It's going to be a soft opening around 3rd and 4th, which will be employees and families and whatnot. And then I believe the 5th of July is going to be the open date where it opens to everyone. It's city residents. If you're a guest of a city resident, you have to be a guest of a city resident to utilize it. And down the line, next year there's a plan to allow, folks that don't live in the city to utilize the pool for a fee. But the 5th of July is the fully open day for the pool. So, did I miss anything, Jenny? That was the only thing they said, right? Yeah. So that was it. And Mr. Holy?
Sure, yeah, I'd like to, if you don't mind, give a couple updates. The Violence Prevention Task Force, we did hire a coordinator, Eric Thompson. He started, and we'll be having a meeting, I think the week after next. We'll be having that meeting, and things are starting to roll again. The CPRB, the Civilian Police Review Board, when Michelle Andre left in October, they've been without, leadership for there. I know the Albany Law School was helping out right up to January 1st. So we've been kind of stalled in the water, but we had a meeting today. Kelly and I met with them. They picked out a candidate. They're going to investigate the candidate. So we're hoping to have the the program director for the CPRB, in place soon. In the meantime, we are working on hiring a part-time person to try to help them catch up, because they have fallen a little bit behind, but I just want to make sure everybody knows about it in case somebody says what's going on, that you know that we are working on it, and we plan on being able to catch up. It was a double whammy having Michelle leave, and then the law school not taking on, no longer on, wanting to be part of this process. So having them move into the city is taking place. The space has been cleaned up, and they're going to be ready to move in. It's actually ready right now. So just wanted to give everybody an update. Thank you.
Okay, so if nobody else has anything, a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Okay.